Sorry if I sound a little bit stuffed up, a little bit groggy. I'm getting over a sickness right now. So I wanted to start this video off with another story of my good old home state of Colorado. Now, I made a video the other day talking about a guy who was planting homemade bombs on a running trail near where I live, which, by the way, that video has like 3 views or something like that. I'm pretty sure YouTube gave me the middle finger and said, no, you can't talk about bombs, then proceeded to bend me over and whisper in my ear, no algorithm pushes for you today. So go check that out if you're interested. It would mean the world to me. But little did I know some more wacky shit was about to happen. I mean, given it's 2026 now, which, by the way, Happy New Year's if this is the first video you're seeing from me, nothing is off the table. The thing I wanted to talk about is a fire that started at a construction zone the other day. This fire was outrageous, and some of my friends, whom are firefighters, said it was one of the craziest fires that they have ever seen. That was not a wildfire. But before I go into the fire, let me add some context. Just like my last video, this all started with me going for a walk, a jolly stroll. But my spider senses were tingling because there was something off. A smell. Something that smelled familiar, but at the same time, not really. It kind of smelled like fireworks and burning plastic at the same time, which is fucking weird that I came up with that conclusion. Which, by the way, if you have smelled burning plastic, then you know how shitty it smells. So the smell was a little bit too much. It was almost too much. I was thinking about pulling a U-turn and saying, to hell with this, I'm just gonna go hide inside of my lair. Vitamin D, what the hell even is that? But none the braver, I ventured into the wilderness only to get absolutely panicked because I started seeing these burnt pieces on the ground in my neighborhood. I'll throw some pictures up on screen. These were littered across my neighborhood, and there was an overwhelming panic that I got because I was like, did some house catch on fire around me? I mean, shit, man, I live in basically a retirement community. You don't know what the hell the old people are up to. Did someone fall asleep with the pizza in the oven maybe? Little arsony situation, who the hell knows? Nonetheless, I wasn't going to let anything stop me from having a walk. So I went on that walk, touched some grass, then I got a text from my buddy saying that he needed a third for arc raiders. With that being said, my gamer gene started screaming to be let out of the cage. I said absolutely. Then he asked me, do you live near Glendale, Colorado? I said yes, kind of, in a close enough proximity. And mind you, this dude lives in another state. So when he was asking me about Glendale, Colorado, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, maybe you're planning on moving here, maybe you're planning on visiting. I wasn't too sure. Then he said my cousin is actually over there. He lives there, and there's a massive fire happening. So that's when I got to thinking, which is a rare thing that I do. And I said, wow, this all makes sense. With that smell being so horrendous and those char pieces being all over the ground, it was almost like when you find the final piece of the puzzle before it gets ingested by your dog. So there was one thing I wanted to do before I bent kids over in Arc Raiders. I booted up the news to see what was going on, and let me tell you, this shit was crazy. Now, first and foremost, I believe these were all new constructions, which typically I bitch about new construction on how every block you turn, there's some new quote-unquote luxury apartment, which, by the way, if you've ever lived in one of those things, they're not very luxurious. Typically, they're actually pretty shitty to live in. I definitely have my stories about them, but I'm not even going to get into that right now. Nonetheless, I am happy to say that these are new constructions because nobody was in them. This is also basically confirming what I was saying about the ash and the char marks making their way over to where I live, because that thing was burning so badly that there was even a collapse of one of the structures. Now, according to the reports that I'm seeing, this is one of the largest blazes in Denver's history, only being clips from a fire from 1990. So that's what, 30 years ago? 30 years plus, which fucking, that's crazy. Almost 40 years, wow. And the firefighters did such a good job with this one, as they always do, grinding all weekend to get this fire into a controllable spot. 98% extinguished from what I saw. And yes, I said all weekend. This thing started on Friday, and they got it controlled on Monday afternoon. That is absolutely insane, and thank God for our firefighters. Talk about balls of steel. And speaking of firefighters, miraculously there was only one injury, and that person has since been released from the hospital. I want to touch on a news report, but before I do, I wanted to look at the extent of damage here, which, by the way, this is just to the complex itself. I have no idea what the true extent of the damage was at the surrounding buildings. Also, I heard through the grapevine that there was a certain famous homes that was caught in the fire, but I'm not 100% too sure on that, and it could be pure bullshit. I can't find anything online stating it. So if you know anything about that, drop a comment below because I would love to read it. Now for the extent of the damage. Officials are gathering details about the extent of the damage. It is unclear how much square footage was affected, but Murphy describes the destruction as covering an entire city block. The burned construction site was for a 283-unit apartment complex called Harker Heights, which is such a douchey name, by the way. It was stated to open in May according to the 2023 update from the designer. The complex was 233,902 square feet and valued at $23.2 million in 2025. The Denver Post reports. So you're telling me that these assholes can get 233,000 square feet in an apartment complex, but I can't even get a 2,000 square foot house for anything less than $600,000? That's absolutely insane. Nonetheless, 23.2 big smackaroos lost just like that. It's a shame, even though I said I hate those apartment complexes, as I've said over and over and over. They're just predatory. They really, really are. But it still sucks to see all that building just get burnt to the ground in one weekend, and the people around it being affected as well by this.
Here live right now, a 3-alarm fire continues burning a large apartment building in Denver. Denver Fire saying so far they have not found anyone that is hurt there. The first call for this went out just after 7 p.m. and we have been live at this scene for you ever since. Here's a look from our newscopter 2 hours into the fire. Look at all that smoke. Nice to see and not see those flames. Those flames torching that 4-story apartment building. It's called Harker Heights, we have learned, which is under construction. This is a bad situation. Xcel has cut power, we know, to at least 1,000 customers as fire crews work to get control of what has been a massive fire out there.
This might be a smooth brain thought, but I don't know if anyone else has Xcel in other states. But to explain what that is, so quick speed run term, that's essentially just our power. And for it to be cut off from hundreds of people is probably a pretty scary thing. I had to do some researching, threw on the sleuth hat and the corncob pipe and looked up what a 3-alarm fire is because I just had no idea what that was. Which is crazy given that the only natural disasters that we really get in this state are fires. But I guess this is basically just an EF scale for fires, and apparently this one reached a 5-alarm fire at one point, which according to the internet is, well, fucked. To give you the internet term, it is a extremely large, severe blaze requiring massive resources, calling in numerous fire engines, ladder trucks, and specialized units from multiple departments, often representing the highest level of local response, meaning all hands on deck for a major incident like a factory fire, warehouse fire, or multi-building fire. And like I said, I don't think anyone was inside those apartments, so there was no casualties as far as we know so far.
We do have team coverage for you right now. Your reporter, Tori Mason, live along with my co-anchor, Michael Spencer. And Michael, you started talking with people in that community immediately.
Yeah, Karen, and a lot of people that we've talked to have just been kind of in awe in terms of how big this blaze was. I had people tell me that they saw it at I-25 and Spear. That's how far they saw it in terms of it going west. And then I also had somebody that I talked to tell me that he was at Costco in Aurora, 3 miles away with his girlfriend. They walked outside, felt something falling from the sky and thought to themselves, well, it's too warm for snow. What could this be? It was ash from this fire. I talked to several people in the area who are just kind of out here watching and looking on. One guy told me, well, I don't have power at my place, so I'm either going to be sitting there twiddling my thumbs or out here kind of talking to people and just kind of commiserating about the fact that we don't have power right now. So
gives me shivers up my spine thinking about no power. Truly a Gen Z person's worst nightmare. It's almost as scary as going outside. 2026 is such a struggle, but I knew I wasn't crazy. That's exactly what I was seeing and smelling. That ash, those chunks of pieces, which by the way, I'll show it one more time on screen. I wanted to wrap back around to this because this was almost like a styrofoam consistency. It was really, really weird, something that I've never seen before. It was super fragile and brittle, super weird stuff. And when you smudged it on the ground, it left a giant streak of ash. Now, using my big brain powers, I'm assuming that this is probably drywall, which wouldn't be too far-fetched given the 233,000 square feet or whatever that apartment complex was at. It's just crazy to think that drywall or whatever that was can end up around like 20-30 miles away from the fire itself.
Yes, Michael, well, this has actually been upgraded to a 5-alarm fire. Denver Fire says they haven't seen a blaze of this magnitude in quite some time. It actually reminds me of that apartment fire at Colfax and Peoria and Aurora. That apartment complex was nearly complete as well. In fact, the construction is actually what makes this a little bit more difficult to put out. Now, fire officials say the fire was so intense it began creating its own wind, sending embers into nearby neighborhoods. At one point, those embers were blowing across cars and into nearby properties. Several buildings were threatened. Evacuations were ordered for homes directly behind this structure. At this point, officials say they don't know what caused the fire, and they're not speculating on whether it was accidental or not. Right now, they're focused on the difficult fight to put it out.
Good God. Now, I wouldn't consider myself to be the smartest breadstick in the Olive Garden breadbasket, but did she just say that this fire got so intense that this thing started creating its own weather patterns, started creating its own wind? That's absolutely wild. And like she said, there's no cause for this fire yet, but I'm assuming we will know at some point. I think once they clear it all out and get a forensics team down there, they'll figure it out lickety-split. Anyways, between this and the homemade bomb guy, this has been a crazy week. Stay safe out there, people. I'll see you later.